Jazeera International Academy, and here we're talking about using the Headway Plus books. And today's demonstration lesson from me, Mr. Paul Anthony, and my colleague, Mr. Gregory, will be about reading and speaking. So we're going to have a look at that. Okay, Mr. Gregory, can you tell me about your any big events in your life?
Yes, probably the year that I spent in the army when I finished with school.
Oh yes. Getting
married was a big event.
So tell me something about when you were in the army then. What was such a big event? I mean, did they all join up in South Africa?
Well, at that time it was compulsory, you didn't have a choice. So you had to, when you finished school, they called you up and you went in. I was the last of the call-ups that spent 1 year in the army. After my stint in the army, everybody was called up for 2 years. So it's a complete change of life because you leave home. You share a huge room with 24 other youngsters who have also been called up.
Okay, so this was a big life event for you.
It was a major change, life change. It was also a rite of passage, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it was an important thing and a worthwhile effort.
When you say it was a rite of passage, could you explain to the students what that means, a rite of passage?
Basically for me, and I think for many other effectively teenagers, it is a transition from adolescence. I think that during that year one stops being a boy and one becomes a man.
Okay. And what was the other life event that you were going to tell me about?
Well, there was my marriage and then followed by my divorce. Well, obviously followed, didn't receive it. And getting married was a big event. Having my daughter being born was a huge event in my life.
Yes.
And she's still very important in my life.
Yeah. So these are life events. Okay, Mr. Gregory is telling us about when he joined the army, when he got married, when he had a child. So, these are life-changing events. This is what this is about. Life's big events. These are big events. A big event for me, I suppose, was actually coming to Saudi Arabia. That was a big event for me.
Another major event in my life, Mr. Thorpe, was being hit by the car in Al-Baha.
Oh, I see.
Yes. I have serious injuries, which has left me permanently disabled in some ways.
I see. What injuries did you suffer in this life-changing event?
Well, I had a cracked skull.
I see. Did that affect you in any way?
Well, yes, it was sort of pleasant sort of thing to have a cracked skull and my head was sewn up.
So Mr. Gregory is telling us that another big event in his life was he was in Al-Baha and he was hit by a car and he had a cracked skull. A crack is just maybe just here, so like you could have a crack in the wall. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe here you might have a little crack in the wall. And the human skull, this is the skull, and he had a crack. I think it was here actually. He had a cracked skull, so this is the skull. So that was the injury that he suffered. This was a big event for him. Funnily enough, Mr. Gregory, I was also injured by a car, but when I was a boy. In fact, I've actually been in 3 very serious road accidents in England. So they were all big events for me, if I can say that. Anyway, enough of this doom and gloom. Let's get back to the book. Life's big events. Put these life events into an order. So, what do you think? Number 1, was born. Was born when you were a baby, when you were delivered by your mother and the midwife, that's the nurse, in the hospital or at home. Was born. That would be number 1. Mr. Gregory, for number 2, went to school, got married, grew up, studied at university, or met a husband or wife. What do you think? Number 2?
I would suspect went to school would be number 2.
Number 2, went to school. What would you put for number 3?
I would say probably grew up.
Grew up for number 3. Okay, what about number 4?
Number 4 would be... Oh no, number 3 would be went to school, I would think.
Yeah, I think so too. Number 3, went to school.
Went to school would be first and then grew up would come next.
No, went to school would be second. Was born was first.
Was born, okay, was born. Number 2 would be went to school.
Uh-huh.
Number 3 would be grew up.
Yes.
Number 4 would be studied at university.
I agree, yes. What about number 5?
Number 5, I would say met a husband or wife. In my case, it would be a wife.
Okay.
And then got married.
So just to recap, Mr. Gregory, so we're saying number 1 was born. Well, I tell you what, we'll look at the key rather than continue with that. Let's have a look at the key. Here we are. Oh. So, yes, number 1 was born. Number 2, grew up. You grow up. Then you go to school. Then maybe you get a husband or wife or study at university. Then you study at university. It depends which way you look at this. You know, because some people get married, then they go to university. Some people go to university and get married. It depends on the person's own situation. Because everyone's situation in the world is different. Even brothers and sisters, maybe you have a brother who's 1 year older than you or 1 year younger than you. His situation will be different to yours. And most people do get married, don't they? They do, eventually, at some stage. Yeah.
And Mr. Paul, I've heard it said that no 2 children in the same family have the same parents. Because the way each sibling experiences their parents is different to the way the others experience the parents.
Oh, well, they have the same parents, the same biological parents.
Physically they are the same, but the way they experience them is different.
They have a different upbringing.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any brothers, Mr. Gregory?
No, but I've got one. I had 2 sisters. One has passed away, and I have one.
And were the upbringing of your, or should I say, was their upbringing different to your upbringing? Do you feel?
Well, yes, it was. Apart from anything else, because they were girls and they were much older than me. The next sister was 7 years older than I was.
Oh, I see. So
Well,
you,
she still is for that matter.
so you were the baby brother.
I was the baby, and then my parents stopped.
Okay, that's fine. Let's move on. Now we're going to listen to Milena Duszek and George Reinhardt and Archie McRae talk about their lives. Who talks about his or her parents? Who talks about his or her husband-wife? Who talks about his or her studies? Who talks about where he or she lives? So first, we'll listen to Milena Duszek, George Reinhardt and Archie McRae talk about their lives. And we have to decide who talks about his or her parents, who talks about his or her husband and wife, or wife, who talks about his or her studies and where he or she lives. Let's listen and find out. In fact, I'll even make it easier for you. I'll open the script.
Tape script 14.8. Life's Big Events. 1. Milena Duszek.
My father is a journalist and works for a newspaper called Blesk. My mother works as a chef in a restaurant in the Old Town.
2. Georg Reinhardt.
I was born in Frankfurt, where I grew up and went to school. I studied architecture at the University of Munich. I met Carlotta at university. She was a student of modern languages. We moved to Berlin in 1995.
3. Archie McRae.
I went to Drumchapel High School. I studied biology, chemistry and physics. At school, I met Fiona, and we got married when we were 22. We studied medicine together at the same university, and we now live in Edinburgh.
Let's listen again.
Teacher, will you move the window away from the questions, please? I can see the questions while they are talking.
Yeah, I'll try to move it. So we'll listen again, but this time you'll be able to see the questions and the answers. And then I want you to tell me the answers yourselves. Okay, so let's listen again.
Tape script 14.8. Life's Big Events. 1. Milena Duszek.
My father is a journalist and works for a newspaper called Blesk. My mother works as a chef in a restaurant in the Old Town.
2. Georg Reinhardt.
I was born in Frankfurt, where I grew up and went to school. I studied architecture at the University of Munich. I met Carlotta at university. She was a student of modern languages. We moved to Berlin in 1995.
3. Archie McRae.
I went to Drumchapel High School. I studied biology, chemistry and physics. At school, I met Fiona, and we got married when we were 22. We studied medicine together at the same university, and we now live in Edinburgh.
Right. Let's close the script. And, Mr. Gregory, who talked about their parents?
I believe it was Milena Dulcek. She spoke about her parents.
Okay, and who spoke about either their husband or wife?
That was, must have been Georg, I think.
Okay. And who spoke about their studies?
There was Archie McRae. He went on and on about it.
He did, yes. And where does Milena live?
Oh, I can't remember.
Okay, no worries. We'll find out in a moment. And where does George Reinhardt live?
One of them, I think he lives in Berlin or Düsseldorf.
Okay. So you're saying Germany then?
I think it was Germany somewhere.
And where does Archie McRae live?
I think he was in Glasgow.
In Glasgow. Interesting. Well, let's find out. Milena talks about her parents and where she lives. George talks about his wife, his studies and where he lives. Archie talks about his studies, his wife and where he lives. Let's just get rid of that for a second. Let's have a look at some of these pictures. So here she is, Milena Duszek. So after having heard the recording, what can you tell me now, Mr. Gregory, about Milena Duszek or Duszek?
Well, her father was a journalist.
Okay, Mr. Gregory, based on this recording which we've just heard, what can you now tell me about Milena Duszek?
Well, she told us that her father is a journalist and her mother works as a chef.
Oh, I see. Okay. Anything else you can tell me about her that's...
I don't think she told us anything else. She just mentioned what her parents do for a living.
Okay, well let's have a look at George Reinhardt. Based on what you just heard, what you've just listened to, what can you tell me about George?
He was born in Frankfurt, I believe.
Okay.
And he went to the University of Munich where he studied architecture and he also met his wife there.
Okay. What about Archie McRae? Just based on what you've just heard, what do you remember about Archie McRae?
He studied chemistry and something else at high school where he met his wife, or his future wife.
Okay, fine, that's fine, thanks. Let's now just have a look at the text that we have here. So here's the text about George. And could you read this first paragraph here for me, Mr. Gregory?
Georg Reinhardt is an architect. He's married and he lives with his wife Carlotta and 3 children in Berlin. Carlotta is a housewife and their 3 children go to a local school.
Okay, that's fine. What's an architect, Mr. Gregory? What is an architect?
An architect is a person who has studied at university and they design buildings.
Okay. And is he married?
Yes, it says there that he's married to Carlotta.
Okay. And how many children does George Reinhardt have?
He has 3 children.
3 children, yes, that's right. And I'll just read this. He says, I was born in Frankfurt, where I grew up and went to school. I studied architecture at the University of Munich. I met Carlotta at university. She was a student of modern languages. We moved to Berlin in 1995. Where was George Reinhardt born?
He was born in Frankfurt.
Yes, he was born in Frankfurt in Germany. And where did he study architecture?
At the University of Munich.
He did, yes. Okay, when did George and his family, or George and his wife, I should say, who is now his wife Carlotta, when did they move to Berlin?
They moved in 1995.
1995. Would you like to read this next paragraph here?
Teaches it Georg or George? The pronunciation of his name.
Do you know what? I can't remember. I listened to it, but I don't think it's really that important. I mean, it's an Eastern European name, probably something like George. That's how they pronounce it.
Oh, they are George.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
George also teaches architecture. Next year he is moving to America to teach at the University of California in Berkeley for 3 years. His family is going with him. They are going to live on the university campus, where there is a school for the children. His wife is going to teach German.
Yes, that's a bit like the pronunciation of this word, American pronunciation, as you say there. I think the Americans, they say Berkeley. No, we would say Berkeley. I think the Americans say Barclay. Yeah, so there's differences in pronunciation in English depending on which part of the country you're from. If you're in America, even in Eastern Europeans, they pronounce words slightly differently to people in Saudi Arabia, like that's where we are now. So, yeah, pronunciation can be a bit of a problem, especially between British and American pronunciations. I think the key, really, when you're learning a language, especially a language like English, is just to stick with one particular pronunciation, either American or British, and you make the choice yourself. Don't try to mix the pronunciations, because it seldom works. Okay, so let's move on. When is George moving to America?
Next year.
Next year, yes. What's he going to do in America?
He is going to teach at the University of California.
Yes, he is, in Berkeley. And where's he going to live with his wife and his children? Where are they going to live?
They're going to live on the university premises.
Yeah, so I guess they've got halls of residence where the teachers can live and the students can live. What's his wife going to teach in Berkeley, in California? What's she going to teach?
She's going to teach German.
German, yes, that's right. And I'll just read this one for you. They're all very excited about the trip. The kids are learning English. They want to see the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, says George. My wife and I are looking forward to living in sunshine all year round. What does it mean, the trip, when he talks about the trip?
That would be the journey they are taking.
Yes, have you been on any trips in California, Gregory?
No, I've not been to the USA at all.
Let's read about Milena. So, Milena Dušek, or Dušek, again, I can't remember how they pronounced it on the recording. I'm going to go with Dušek. Apologies if I've got it wrong. So, Milena Dušek is Czech. She was born in Prague, where she still lives with her mother, father, and 2 sisters. She's 18 and she goes to an international school. She's studying English, psychology, and economics. Now, don't forget, when we're talking about academic topics like psychology, if it begins with a P, it's silent. We say psychology. Okay, so the P is silent. Now, where is Milena from? Where's she from?
She was born in Prague.
Oh, so she's from the Czech Republic?
She's Czech, yes.
Yes, okay. And who does she live with?
She lives with her mother, her father, and 2 sisters.
Yes, that's right. What kind of school does she go to? What kind of school does she go to?
She goes to an international school.
Yes, that's right. Would you like to read about her father?
My father is a journalist and works for a newspaper called Blesk. My mother works as a chef in a restaurant in the Old Town.
Thank you for that. And what does Milena's mother do? What does Milena's mother do?
She's a chef.
She's a chef.
She
yes.
cooks in a restaurant.
Okay, I'll just read this final paragraph here. Milena wants to work in banking. She's going to study business when she's older. So it's important that she speaks very good English. Next summer, she's going to London for 2 months to study at a language school. She's going to stay with an English family and she's going to learn English for 5 hours a day. She's excited about going to London, but a little bit worried too. I hope the family are nice and I hope I like English food, she said. Mr. Gregory, where does Milena want to work?
She wants to go into the banking industry.
Yes, she wants to work in banking. So what is Milena going to study in London?
She's going to study English because that is important for her planned career.
Actually, you're right about that. But she's going to study business. Okay? When she's London, yeah, you're right. You see, even I get it wrong sometimes. Our student, Mr. Gregory, is absolutely right, because if we go further down here, she's going to London for 2 months to study at a language school. Oh, thank you for that, Mr. Gregory. What did she say about how she's thinking now about English food? What's she thinking about that?
She's a little bit nervous. She doesn't know if she'll enjoy English food or not.
That's absolutely right. Thank you for that, Mr. Gregory. She's a bit nervous about the food, but she has nothing to worry about because in Britain, and in particular in London, we have a wide range of food. In fact, we have restaurants from just about everywhere in the world. We've got English food, we've even got Irish food, yes, Irish restaurants. We've got Vietnamese restaurants now, Chinese restaurants, Chinese takeaways, Turkish restaurants, Greek restaurants. If you go along the Edgware Road in London, central London, that's where the Arab sector is, lots of Arab restaurants, hotels. So I don't think she's got anything to worry about when it comes to food. Let's have a look now. Where were we? Archie! Would you like to read this first paragraph about Archie?
Archie McRae is Scottish. He was born in Glasgow, where he grew up with his parents and his brother and sister. His father is a doctor and his mother works for the research company Bayer.
Yes. So where's Archie McRae from? Where's he from?
He's from Glasgow.
Glasgow. Where is Glasgow? Where's that?
That's in Scotland.
It's in Scotland, yes. Can you read this as well?
I went to Drumchapel High School. I studied biology, chemistry and physics. At school I met Fiona and we got married when we were 22. We studied medicine together at the same university and now we live in Edinburgh.
Yes. Which school did Archie McRae attend? Which school did he attend?
He went to Drumchapel High School.
And what did Archie McRae, what did he study at school?
He studied biology, chemistry and physics.
Right. Who did he meet at school?
He met his future wife, Fiona.
He did, yes. And where does he live now with his wife, Fiona?
Now they live in Edinburgh.
Okay. Would you like to read the next paragraph?
They want to work in developing countries. Next week they're going to Zambia in southern Africa for a year to work in a hospital in the east of the country. They are going to train doctors and nurses in villages near the hospital.
Okay, so what do Archie and Fiona want to do? What do Archie and Fiona want to do?
They want to work in developing countries slightly backward countries perhaps to help them get along, I presume.
Okay, so according to you, you're saying that developing countries are backward countries. What do you mean by that?
That they have not got to the same level of healthcare, technology, and other areas of expertise that other countries like the USA or Britain or South Africa have achieved.
I see. So here we have a question here. It says, how do they feel about their trip? They say, we're very excited, but a bit nervous, says Archie. Zambia is a beautiful country, but very poor. The people are wonderful. I hope we can help them. So that was Archie McRae. So when we meet someone for the first time, we sometimes say a little bit about ourselves. For example, I was born in London. I go to school in Saudi Arabia. Now find expressions in the box, in the text about Milena, George and Archie and underline them. Did you do that? That's excellent. Now use the expressions in exercise 5 to write sentences about you. So Mr. Gregory, give me an expression with was born.
About me, I was born in East London, South Africa. I grew up in Johannesburg, and currently I live with 3 flatmates in a flat in Saudi Arabia. I'm going to try and go home on a vacation in January. I hope to be allowed to go, and I hope that I have paid by then so that I can afford to take the trip. I work as a teacher for Al Jazeera Academy. I've studied education, psychology, English and something else at university. And I'm excited about going home and seeing my family again at some stage. I've not seen them for over a year now.
Thank you very much to my colleague, Mr. Gregory, for that. So that's how we would use the book and the questions. We would ask the students to answer the questions. So that was from the Beginner's Headway Plus book. So it's thank you from me, Mr. Paul Anthony, here in sunny Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.